Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Tonight we have 7 stories in total. We'll be starting things off with 2 longer stories, and then we'll have 4 shorter stories, and then we'll be closing things off with a short 6-part series. I hope you all enjoy them. I think this is one of the better videos I've made in quite a while. I really enjoyed the stories in this one, so I hope you all do too. If you do, please be sure to drop a like rating. Let's see if we can reach 500 likes on this one. I think if everybody took just a quick second, we could definitely get there. Subscribing if you are new is also very much appreciated, as I post content just like this all of the time. Anyways, sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax, and as always, I hope you all have a great night. My name's Rick, or it used to be. When I woke up one morning, the guy in the mirror wasn't me. I'm not talking about a bad hair day or a weird dream. I mean, the face staring back at me was someone else's. A total stranger. I stumbled into the bathroom half asleep, switched on the light, and there he was. About 5 years older. Short black hair, receding at the temples. Mine was full and dusty brown. A scar on the chin like he'd taken a bottle to the face once. Thick eyebrows. Brown, tired eyes. They were supposed to be green. I touched my own cheek. The mirror guy did the same. I blinked. He blinked. I pulled open the medicine cabinet, hoping to find something, anything that would explain this. Pills, booze, drugs. Nothing but toothpaste and an old bottle of Tylenol. The panic started hitting, so I yanked a hoodie over my head, pulling the drawstrings tight until my face was basically a shadow, and tiptoed downstairs. Kelsey, my girlfriend, was still asleep in bed. For a second, I thought about waking her, telling her everything, but how the hell do you even start that conversation? A lot of guys have woken up looking like crap, hungover from a bender, shiner from a bar fight, but no boyfriend has ever had to explain wearing another man's face. I grabbed my keys instead, made it halfway across the living room when I heard her scream. "Who the hell are you?" I turned and there she was, frozen at the top of the stairs, clutching a blanket to her chest. "Kelsey, it's me," I said, voice shaking. "It's Rick." Wrong move. She bolted toward the bedroom, shouting about calling the cops. She looked at me like I was some kind of monster. I'll never forget that look. I didn't stick around to see if she made the call, just jumped into my car and floored it out of the driveway, charging down the road without thinking, out past the gas stations and boarded up strip malls. I pulled into the parking lot of a diner, a 24-hour greasy spoon with flickering neon signs. I needed a place to sit and think. The bell above the door jingled as I walked in. A few heads turned, but quickly went back to their coffees and scrambled eggs. I slid into a booth in the back, pressed against the window. A waitress approached, chewing gum lazily. "What'll it be, hon?" "Just coffee," I muttered. She walked off. I buried my face in my hands. I needed a plan. I needed answers. Should I check myself into a hospital? Go to the police? Hell, maybe find a motel and lay low until I figured it out. "Hey, there you are." I looked up. A man was standing at the edge of my booth, grinning ear to ear. He was big, beefy, with tattoos running up both arms. His eyes gleamed with something between recognition and excitement. "We've been looking all over for you, man," he said. "You're supposed to be at home." I blinked. "I think you have the wrong person," I said carefully. He laughed. "Come on, Alex. You forget your own name now?" Alex. The word hit me like a slap. "Sorry," I said. I'm a little out of it. He clapped me on the back hard enough to rattle my teeth. No crap. Come on, let's get you back. Tara's worried sick. Tara. That name meant nothing to me. But right then, I didn't have any better options, and maybe they would help me figure out what the hell had happened. He drove an old Ford pickup, reeking of cigarettes. Been a rough couple of days, huh? He said, pulling out of the lot. Tara said you stopped taking your meds. Started talking crazy again. I stared at him. What do you mean? I ventured. He shot me a side eye. You know, about being somebody else, not remembering who you are, all that. My skin crawled. I turned to look out the window. The town blurred past. Shuttered stores, peeling billboards, cracked sidewalks. It all felt unfamiliar, like I was dropped in the middle of a movie I hadn't seen from the start. We pulled into a suburban street lined with sagging houses and unkempt lawns. He parked in front of a yellow house with peeling paint and a broken mailbox. You ready? He asked. No, but I nodded anyway. Tara was waiting at the door. She was mid-30s with short blonde hair and dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me with a complicated expression. Worry, frustration, love. Thank God, she said, pulling me into a tight hug. I stood stiffly, not knowing how to react. She pulled back, frowning. Are you okay? You look different. I tried to smile, but it probably looked more like a grimace. I'm fine, I lied. Let's get you inside. The house smelled like stale beer and old laundry. The living room was cluttered with toys, dolls, and action figures. Scattered across the floor, a little girl peeked around the corner, clutching a teddy bear. Hi, Daddy, she whispered. My heart cracked. I didn't know her. I didn't know any of them. But she knew me. Abby, I soon found, was her name. My daughter. Hi, I said, as softly as I could, and she ran and hugged my leg. The next few days were a blur. Tara handed me pills every morning, tiny white ones from a bottle labeled Halo Paradol. The label said, Alexander Marshall. I swallowed them without arguing. Better to be numb than to feel like I was in the wrong skin. The meds dulled everything, like living inside a padded room, watching the world through dirty glass. But they didn't erase my memories. I still remembered Kelsey, our first apartment above the bookstore, the way she used to wear my old hoodie on cold mornings, her laugh when she got nervous. I remembered being Rick Morrison, and this wasn't my life. Late one night, I woke up thirsty, in bed alone, still half drugged from the pills. As I stumbled toward the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of Tara in the living room. She was kneeling in front of the coffee table, whispering to something small and dark sitting in the center. At first, I thought it was a statue. Some ugly figurine about the size of a football, carved like a man with wings folded over his face. Mouthless, knees drawn tight to his chest. Tara rocked back and forth, whispering words I wouldn't catch. I blinked hard, trying to focus. When she saw me, she snapped upright, blocking it from view with her body. You should be sleeping, she said sharply. I mumbled something and stumbled back upstairs. I told myself it was just grief, stress, medication. I told myself I was unreliable, delusional, insane, and had to lean on the people around me to know what was going on. Then it happened. I was on the couch when the news came on. Breaking, car crash off Route 7. I barely looked up until I heard the name. Richard Morrison, 32, found dead at the scene. My chest locked up. They showed my face on TV, my real face, found dead in a ditch outside of town. They said I must have lost control, drunk maybe. No foul play suspected. Something snapped loose inside me. I waited until Tara and Abby were asleep, stole the keys off the kitchen counter, and drove. Headlights off, heart in my throat. I had to find Kelsey. Had to make her understand. I went back to my house, waiting out back in the rain. Kelsey arrived, heading inside. I didn't want to break in and scare her again, so I waited until she came out with a cigarette. She stood under the awning, shaking from either the cold or from holding it together too long, fumbling with a lighter. "Kelsey?" I said, stepping out from the shadows. She jumped, dropping the cigarette. Her eyes went wide. Fear, recognition, confusion, all smashed together. "You again," she said, voice trembling. "Why are you here?" "I know how this sounds," I said quickly, "but you have to believe me. I'm Rick." She shook her head, backing toward the door. No, you're sick. You broke into my house. You're crazy." I knew she'd say this, and I came prepared. "I know about the quarry," I said. "When you were 16, you broke your wrist sneaking in, trying to impress that idiot Jason. You lied and said you slipped on the stairs." She froze. I pressed on. "I know about the birthmark on your hip that you hate. I know you hate mint toothpaste, and pretended you didn't because I love it. I even told you not to smoke, but know you still do when you're stressed. Found that pack of cigarettes 3 months ago. Breast pocket of your pea coat with a rip in the lining. But I didn't tell you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "How?" she whispered. "I have no idea," I said. "I saw the news report, but that was my body, but I'm here. Somehow, this is me." Kelsey stood there, rain dripping from her light brown hair, staring at me like she was seeing a ghost. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Finally, she broke. "Get inside," she whispered, her voice cracking, "before someone sees you." The house was dim and cold. She didn't turn on the lights, just closed the door softly behind us and bolted it. That night I crashed on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of home, detergent and Kelsey's old perfume. Neither of us slept much. She sat in the armchair across from me, sipping cold coffee. Every few minutes she'd look at me, studying my face, my gestures, the way I scratched my head or shifted my weight, looking for pieces of the man she lost, looking for proof. I didn't blame her. Sometimes I caught myself doing it too, trying to find myself in this stranger's skin. Over the next few days, we started digging. She pulled out old photo albums. I pointed out things only Rick would know. Places we'd gone. Stupid inside jokes scribbled on the back of Polaroids. We went through my old texts and emails. Looked for anything about Alex Marshall. Nothing. No overlaps. No connections. One night we drove out to the crash site. Headlights cutting through the misty dark. Route 7 was deserted. The road wound between 2 rocky slopes, guardrails twisted like broken arms. We found the spot easily. A fresh patch of scorched earth, scattered glass glittering in the weeds. The official story said I veered off, hit the ravine, snapped my neck on impact. But standing there looking down at the wreckage site, it didn't feel like an accident. Kelsey shivered beside me, pulling her jacket tighter. She had told me that since that morning she first saw me as Alex. The Rick that returned home hadn't been acting like himself. He claimed he was out on a morning jog when I intruded, but he was cold, distant, going through the motions. Then a memory clicked into place, sharp, clear. On the way home, I told Kelsey about the figurine, the mouthless thing Tara had been whispering to, the way she tried to hide it when she realized I was watching. Kelsey went still, her hand tightening around her coffee thermos. "Describe it again," she said. I did. She searched on her laptop, using my description to find something. A pagan story older than any religion about a figure called the Morn Kin. He fit the description on the figurine to a T. A being that could swap one life for another. But the price was steep. The stolen soul would rot away, memory by memory, until nothing remained. Only the vessel, the body, would survive. Before we could scare each other any further, we decided to call it. Kelsey had made up the guest bedroom for me after the first night, but she didn't want to sleep alone. I told her I could take the floor and she could have the bed, as she shook her head and pulled me in, kissing me. She came away, saying it was the strangest thing. She knew I was physically different, but she could feel me in the kiss. It couldn't have been anyone else. We slept together that night, and I felt like I was home again, even if we had a long way to go. I was overwhelmed with the comforting sensation that we would figure it out together. The next morning we were awoken by 3 loud knocks on the front door. Kelsey sat bolt upright, heart hammering like mine. A voice called out from the porch, "Alex, you need to come home." It was Tara's brother, Wesley, the big guy who found me in the diner, and he wasn't alone. Through the blinds, I caught a glimpse of a patrol car. The police. Kelsey grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the back of the house. "Out the window," she hissed. We scrambled into the kitchen, wrenching open the tiny window above the sink. I barely fit through, landing hard in the wet grass behind the house. Kelsey tumbled after me. We sprinted into the woods, shoes slipping in the mud. Behind us, I heard the front door crash open, cops bursting inside, then Tara's voice cutting through the morning air. "It's too late," she screamed. I didn't look back. We ran for what felt like hours, through the trees, down abandoned side roads, across parking lots slicked with rain. Found an old junkyard, busted open a rusted Ford that still had keys tucked behind the visor. We drove with the windows down, soaking wet, breathless. And when we thought we were clear, we pulled into a gas station outside of town. The lot was empty except for one truck. Wesley's truck. By the time we spotted it, he was already standing there behind my bumper, blocking us into our space, waiting. Kelsey cursed under her breath, restarting the ignition like she was going to run him over. But in the rear view, Wesley held up one hand, not threatening or angry, just tired. I opened my door before she could stop me. Maybe I just needed answers, or maybe I was sick of running. Wesley didn't move, just looked at me, really looked, and said, "I'm not here to drag you back." "Then why are you here?" I asked. "To let you know." "Know what?" I asked. He lit a cigarette with shaking fingers, glanced toward the dark highway. "You were never supposed to survive it." "What is it, exactly?" I asked. "I don't know." He exhaled a cloud of smoke. "All I know is it trades one life for another. First time Tara did it, it was to a bully of hers in high school. Caused so much chaos. I never thought she'd use it again." Then why did she? I asked. Because you... He paused. Alex wasn't well. He kept talking about leaving Tara. Didn't want to be with her anymore. And he was threatening to take Abby. He paused, then said, Guess she figured she had a better shot at someone else in his body than no Alex altogether. Why did you choose me? I asked. He smiled and shook his head. It chose you. We had nothing to do with it. In a weird way, this made sense. I was a perfect stranger, but I still didn't understand why he was here. What's the point of finding me, telling me all this? I could see regret in his eyes. Because it wasn't supposed to go down like this. You were supposed to forget right away. He shook his head. But she didn't count on you fighting it, on her still loving you, even as someone else. He looked toward Kelsey sitting in the car watching us, terrified. You being around her, remembering who you are, that's what's screwing it all up, he said. It needs you broken, alone. That's how it finishes the job. But you wouldn't lay down. You kept fighting. Am I safe now? I asked earnestly. He thought about it. You bought time. I don't know how much, but use it while you can. He dropped the cigarette, grinding it under his boot. That's it? I said. He nodded. I'm sorry. Then he got back into his truck and drove away, his taillights shrinking into the dark. We fled again, not putting stock in anything he said, knowing it was better to keep running than to let our guard down now. New state, new town, new motel. Night after night. I was just glad to have Kelsey with me, and she felt the same. We didn't care where we were, as long as we were together. And it felt like maybe we had beaten it until things started slipping. First, it was small stuff she had told me, things I should have remembered. Where we parked the car, what room we were staying in. I brushed these off. Everyone forgets sometimes. Then whole conversations were gone like smoke. I couldn't remember what we talked about or ate at dinner. Kelsey was concerned but kept me calm, hoping for the best despite the growing evidence to the contrary. Finally, one night we stopped at a nameless motel on the edge of town. It was cold, freezing. Kelsey said she was going back inside to grab her scarf. I sat on the curb smoking, watching the stars blink and shimmer in the distance, the kind of dark that illuminated them all but made everything else impossible to discern. And just then, I swear some of the stars seemed to brighten, forming the shape of something, a new constellation I'd never noticed before. A mouthless figure curled in on itself, wings folded across its face, knees drawn tight to its chest. The door creaked open behind me, footsteps on gravel. I turned. There was a woman standing there, mid-30s, light brown hair, warm but tired eyes, a scarf dangling from her hand. I stared at her as she approached, heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand. "Rick?" she said, voice trembling, giving me a look of concern. I stared at her for a long time, then I shook my head. "Sorry, ma'am," I said gently. "I think you have me mistaken for someone else." Her eyes pleaded with me, but I didn't know what for. Tears welled up and spilled down her cheeks. I shifted awkwardly, feeling bad. "Are you okay?" I asked. She shook her head no. I hesitated, the night pressing down around us. "Are you alone here?" I asked gently. For a moment, she just stared at me, searching for something in my face, something that wasn't there anymore. Then she nodded. I entered the department at around 10:30 p.m. The small Iowa town I worked in was quiet, so my hours often didn't extend past 7 or 8. As I hung my jacket, still damp from the cold November drizzle, Reeves walked in holding a few papers. "Sorry, boss. Gotta get you to sign these," he said, his barely lit cigarette hanging from his mouth. The dark circles that gnawed under his eyes were at odds with the dim yellow light from the desk lamp. I sighed, falling into my chair as I scribbled my name across the papers. They were still warm, freshly printed. I leaned forward, rubbing my eyes as I dreamed of being back in my own bed. "This can't be the only reason you called me in here," I muttered, aching to go back home. "You said there was an emergency." "Well, kinda." He shrugged, smiled wryly. "May have exaggerated that a bit. Just got a call from a couple of folks near the old high school. They were hearing screams. Thought we should go check it out." "Probably just the wind or some BS. Do we really need to check it out? We've still got work tomorrow morning." He looked back at me, pushing some of his messy hair out of his face. He was a newer recruit, only a couple of years working here, yet he carried himself with the same fatigue as a worn vet. "No, we should. I wouldn't wish a sleepless night on others." I sighed again and nodded. Town only had about 1,500 people, so we're known by name. Ignoring even a small incident like this means I'll have a personalized complaint, something I don't want to deal with. "Alright, but we've got to be quick about it. Don't want my bed to be cold when I get back." We hop in the patrol car, a crappy 96 Caprice. The town doesn't have that much need for police, so we essentially get hand-me-down equipment from the state. "So, screams, huh?" I sighed. Reeves lit another cigarette. "What do you think it is this time? A cat? Maybe a couple high schoolers messing around?" He took a long drag, almost savoring it. "Don't really care. Doesn't change the fact we gotta deal with this." He reached out, offering me his already half-burned cigarette. "Sorry, don't smoke," I said half-heartedly. "Wife made me quit. Can't be dying and leaving her and the kids to fend for themselves." "Oh, since when? Yesterday?" He laughed, his voice cracking a bit with the cold air. "Come on, one won't kill you. Besides, if anything, you smoke more than me." "I'm serious. I made a promise to my wife." I smiled, though my face felt tired. One smoke turns to 2, then 3, then to 10. Next thing you know, we'll be stopping at Lou's to get another pack on the way back. "Suit yourself," he said, turning back to his window. "It's already been a long night, and I got a feeling it ain't gonna get any shorter." We pulled into the dilapidated parking lot of Eaton High, the old town high school. The building had seen better days, practically neglected following the opening of Hillside across town a couple years back. We stepped out of the car, breath visible as rain lightly fell from the pitch-black sky. I pulled out my flashlight, illuminating a clear path to the entrance. Reeves tossed his smoke, following closely behind. There were no other sources of light aside from the street lamps a couple 100 feet away. As we got to the door, Reeves hesitated. "You feel that?" he asked, his eyes on high alert. "Feel what?" "Exactly," he said, scanning the parking lot. There was no one, just our patrol car. A slight pinging noise echoed as the rain pranced on the lonely vehicle. "Where's the wind?" "The wind?" "Yeah, where is it?" "What are you on about?" I said, exasperated. "Does there need to be wind?" We live out in the open plains of Iowa. I don't think I can remember a day without at least a slight breeze hitting my face, especially when it's raining like this. I thought about it. As I looked back on my time here, I couldn't recall any windless days. What does this have to do with anything? Don't know. Just feels strange. He pushed his hair back again as he went to open the double doors guarding the main entrance. I pointed my flashlight through the glass, getting a sneak peek of the layout. Dusty ceramic tiles, old lockers, and some graffiti met my gaze. Nothing looked out of place, although I'm not sure I'd know the difference if something was. Reeves pushed open the doors, surprisingly not locked, and headed inside. I followed closely, looking at the surrounding area. It looked like a typical high school, aside from the occasional art piece sprayed carelessly on the wall. The building was 2 stories, and consisted of 6 wings, labeled A through F. The school was organized nicely, with certain kinds of classes isolated in certain wings. Notably, the school was silent, almost eerily, aside from the noises coming from Reeves and myself. The school was dead. Reeves made his way to the A wing, which housed the electrical unit for the school. It was also where the music department was located. As we approached, I kept looking around. It was musty, a lack of cleaning and ventilation leaving the air stale. The halls were lined with music lockers and a few classrooms. Though the lockers were left empty and ajar, I poked my flashlight through a small window in one of the doors, revealing the old auditorium. Though still in fine shape, it was silent. I scanned the area, looking for any potential source of the reported screams. "Found it," Reeves said excitedly. I jumped, his voice still ringing in my ears in contrast to the silence of the school. "Jesus, kid," I whispered as I made my way to him. "Don't scare me like that. Can't be screaming like that out of the blue." Sorry, he said, rolling his eyes. "Didn't know you scare easy like that." I pointed my flashlight at the panel board. All switches were flipped off. "What rooms you want lit up?" "Just do the hallways. Flashlights should cover the rest pretty easily." As he flipped the switches, the dim lights flickered on, slightly illuminating the rundown building. "We may as well have just left 'em off," Reeves remarked, laughing softly. "Better than nothing," I replied as we made our way back to the main hall. We had yet to hear any noises, much or less screams. We walked through the halls cautiously. Something about dark, old rundown buildings makes you feel on your toes. We browsed the classrooms, pointing our flashlights into the occasionally open door. Nothing too out of the ordinary, just the occasional graffiti or misplaced desk. I sighed. I wanted to go home, back to the comfort of my own bed. As much as I like Reeves, my ideal night did not include scouring an abandoned school with him at dang near midnight. "Want to just go home?" Reeves suggested. He was standing in front of me, obviously bored out of his mind. "It's almost midnight. We've been here for close to an hour. Maybe the folks who reported it just had a bad dream or something." "Sure, why not?" I smiled a bit. "Would make the wife a lot happier if I was back home." We turned to leave, both relieved this excursion amounted to nothing. Then we heard it. A scream. Human. A blood-curdling noise to hear, especially against the dead silence prior. It resonated through the halls as Reeves and I ran toward the source. We ended up in the D wing, where the history and English classes were located. I pulled out my gun and Reeves followed suit. The screaming had ceased for the time being, as if it knew we were coming. We split up, scouring the old rooms for any sign of life. Just as I approached the end of the wing, Reeves' voice broke the newfound silence. "Got something." I ran over to him, adrenaline still rushing through my spine. As I approached, I saw him crouched, talking to a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 5. Messy hair with a white dress with pink flowers. Her blue eyes met my gaze calmly, a sort of calm not usually seen in children. "What's going on?" I panted, out of breath from the cardio we just did. "Did she scream?" "Don't know." Reeves was fixed on the girl, his eyes softening as he looked at the girl. "You got a name, sweetheart?" She nodded shyly, playing with her hair. "Care to share it with us?" I asked. She looked back up at me, glaring slightly. She quickly turned back to Reeves, who smiled a bit. "Guess we know who her favorite is," he joked. "Don't blame ya, sweetheart. He isn't much of a looker." "Ha ha. Now ask her what her name is," I stated bluntly. "We need to find her parents." "True," he said. "Though she doesn't seem too inclined to speak. Don't even know if it was her who screamed. We also don't know what a little girl is doing alone in an abandoned school." Reeves covered her ears, glaring at me a bit. "Not in front of the kid." Sorry, I apologized. Though my suspicions were mounting as the initial adrenaline wore out. Her being here raises a few questions, though. There's no way her parents took her to an abandoned school, which means she either brought herself or was brought here. And I don't know too many 5-year-olds inclined to explore abandoned buildings at midnight. "You saying there's someone else here?" "Course I am. I can't think of any reason why or how she'd be here by herself." Reeves looked back up at me, still crouched by the newly found girl. He looked like he'd just seen a ghost. "Know something else?" His face was pale as he turned back to the girl. "I've seen this girl before. I know it in my gut. My eyes have seen this face before, but for the life of me, I can't pinpoint where." He looked at the girl a bit longer, who was still fidgeting with her hair. "Want to tell us your name? Who brought you here?" Reeves asked softly, though the girl did not answer. Instead, she took off into the main hall. "Hey, don't run. It ain't safe in here," Reeves called out as we took off after. She made a beeline for the gym as we followed close behind, shoes squeaking against the faded tiles. We entered the gym, though the girl was gone. I could have sworn we were only a few steps behind her. We looked around, dumbfounded. How had this girl vanished? We didn't have much time to react to the strangeness of our current situation before Reeves shouted. I glanced over to where his flashlight was pointed. At the edge of the gym, barely illuminated, was a body, face down on the dirty hardwood floor, blood forming a pool around the head. A man, messy blonde hair splattered red, 3 distinct bullet holes poking through the back of his skull. His body was splayed out, clad in a brown flannel and jeans. "Call some backup," I ordered Reeves. "We gotta get this building locked down." "Who do you think did this?" Reeves asked, still staring in shock at the body. "Probably whoever brought the girl here," I said bluntly. "I don't know what's going on here, but we've got a murder and potential kidnapping. We're out of our depth." "Who should I call for backup? Milton?" "Milton won't be able to do anything. Call the Des Moines apartment. They're only half an hour away." I scanned the surrounding gym. Where had the girl gone off to? As I tried to piece a reasonable explanation together, Reeves called me back over to the body. "Toss me the walkie, will ya?" Reeves said, still staring at the corpse. I unclipped it from my belt and handed it to him, careful not to contaminate the crime scene. He started flipping through channels, eventually landing on our shared frequency with the Des Moines department. "We've got a 707 and a potential 710 here at Eaton High, requesting backup." No response. The static filled the once silent room with an eerie buzz. "Do you copy?" Reeves looked up at me confused. The people working at Des Moines often pulled late nights, having people on standby the full 24 hours for cases such as these, but no response. There hadn't even been the slightest indication there was anyone on the other end of the line. "Did you check the channel?" I asked, hoping his tired eyes accounted for our lack of communication. "Yeah, channel 6, Reeves said, puzzled. "I'm positive this is the right channel. I used it a couple months ago for that thief we were tracking down." He was right. Channel 6 was a direct line of communication to Des Moines, yet the static persisted. I rubbed my eyes. The night just kept getting stranger. Why couldn't this have just been some animal? Some sort of BS we could write off. "Did you check the time? I think there's some sort of shift change at midnight. Maybe the operator overseeing the graveyard shift hasn't clocked in yet." "Don't think it's that," Reeves said, staring at his watch. "It's 11:39. "You serious?" I froze up, glancing at my own watch. Sure enough, it read 11:39, 6 seconds. It was 11:39 half an hour ago. "Check the second hand, Chief." I glanced back at my watch, and sure enough, the seconds hand was still reading 6 seconds. It kept ticking, jolting right back to the same mark. "What's going on?" I muttered, shifting back slightly. Nothing was making sense. Maybe our watches broke, though with everything that's happened, I doubt it. Reeves circled around the body, still trying to piece some sort of reasonable explanation together. "Also, do you remember hearing a gunshot? Much or less 3 of them?" "What?" "Blood's still fresh. Usually takes 30 to 60 minutes to dry." His eyes remained trained on the body. "We've been here for about an hour, yet the blood is still wet." He put his hand over the body. "Still a bit warm as well. Should have at least gone cold by now. What we've got here is a fresh body." My eyes widened. None of it added up. "What the hell are we dealing with then?" "I don't know," Reeves continued. "But whoever did this is most likely still here. Girl as well. We can't get in contact with Des Moines, so we're on our own." I gazed at the surrounding gym. The musty smell of old wood met my nose as my flashlight illuminated the dusty bleachers. The girl must also still be here. No way a young kid like that could make it far. "For now, let's stick together," I said, glancing back over at Reeves. His eyes were trained back on his watch. "We don't exactly know what we are in for." Reeves nodded as we both turned back to the main hallway. As we stepped back into the light, we were met with a scream. It sounded as if it were on top of us, resonating from us. It was piercing, a scream populated with loss and sorrow. Reeves and I covered our ears, though that effort was in vain. Just as soon as it had started, it stopped. I looked back at Reeves, whose eyes were now wild with shock. "What just happened?" "I don't know," I replied. "Can't even begin to try and explain. PA system malfunction?" "Man," Reeves rubbed his ears in discomfort. "Didn't know these old PA systems had that kind of juice. I also didn't turn this back on, the panel board." "Kid may have gotten to it," I said. "Or worse yet, our suspect." We made a beeline for the panel board, hoping to end this awful night once and for all. As we approached the A-wing, we could hear the distinct clicks from the panel board switches. They were rapid, nonsensical. Someone just flipping them with no sense of what they even do. The panel board door was wide open when we arrived, though everything was where we had left it. "Is someone messing with us?" Reeves said, exhausted from the oddities of the night. Like, who was just flipping through all of these? Are we both going crazy or something? I shrugged, my mind alert that the killer could be around any corner. Just then, Reeves turned back to the door. Oh, it's you. The little girl stood silently at the entrance to Wing A, playing with her hair. She waved at Reeves, beckoning him forward. All right, I guess, Reeves said, responding to some unspoken message. His eyes were bloodshot, tired. Each step he took appeared a challenge, as if he was falling forward and catching himself. Where do you want to go? The little girl took off. Reeves followed suit. Reeves? I shouted, chasing after. What's gotten into you? I reached out, desperately trying to grab onto his coat. Getting split up with a potential killer loose in the halls is the last thing we should have wanted. As Reeves passed through the double doors guarding the A-wing entrance, they slammed shut, almost taking my fingers off in the process. Reeves, I shouted again, banging against the door. Open the door. We've got to stick together. We haven't got the foggiest idea what's happening. Silence. I pounded on the door, begging Reeves to come back, but I was stuck. What had gotten into him? Just a few minutes ago, he was preaching the idea of sticking together, and now this? I stood confused, wondering what I should do next. Just then, I heard the auditorium door slam shut. I made my way to the door cautiously, peeking into the small window the door possessed. The stage light was on, and standing in it was my wife, Maya. She stood tense, wearing a sundress I bought her only a few months prior. Her brown hair shined under the piercing light, though her look was nervous. A bed lay behind her. Why was she here? I tried opening the door, but it was locked. The handle wouldn't budge. As I struggled to open the door, a group of 6 dark figures stepped onto the stage. They were clad in black robes, faceless shadows that haunted her. I watched as these things slowly undressed her, her now naked self lying on the bed set up on stage. The figures stepped back, forming a circle around her as she lay still. I called out to her, tried wrestling with the door handle again, but nothing worked. My continued was cut short as a man emerged from behind the stage. His back was turned toward me, revealing only his messy hair and brown flannel. Brown flannel. God, it was the same man we'd found dead mere moments before. What kind of game is this? I watched as he approached the bed, the figures humming a soft tune I couldn't understand. I screamed as he mounted her, raped her. She cried out for someone, anyone, yet the figures only watched. She writhed as the man lay on top of her, having his way. I pounded on the door, screaming. Hey, I cried out, though my call was ignored. Get off of her. My voice was cracking. I took a step back, now using my body as a battering ram against the solid wood door. I drove my shoulder into the door as my wife screamed out. God, the screams. My head hurt. My shoulder ached as I kept ramming into the door. I let out a yell, a primal wail that brutalized the air around me. I flew into the auditorium as the door yielded, falling forward into the rows of chairs. As I shot up in anger, I noticed the stage lay empty. The scene I had so vividly endured was gone. Not a whisper remained. I've got to be dreaming, I muttered to myself, laughing. I've just gotta. None of this stuff I've had the pleasure of seeing tonight makes sense. I buried my face in my hands. What had I just witnessed? What does it mean? The screams, the clock, the body, the wind. What could possibly be going on? I couldn't think for long as I heard a giggle of a small child. I looked up, meeting the gaze of the same little girl who took Reeves. She smiled at me, contrary to the usual scowl I received. She waved at me as she ran behind the stage, giggling as she went. I got up, still disgruntled from the previous display. I ran after her, hoping to find some answers, hoping to find Reeves. As I ran past the curtains, I found myself outside, but not into the cold November night Reeves and I had left earlier to examine the school, but a warm afternoon. The sun was still up, though drooping slightly to the west. A warm breeze met my cold face, offering a bit of comfort. What had I stumbled upon? I looked at my surroundings. I was in a park. The trees were bright green, the leaves rustling as the breeze overtook them. The grass was soft, my shoes sinking just slightly with each step. Kids swarmed the playground, laughing and playing, fighting and crying. The little girl looked back at me, giggling as she beckoned me to further explore. Why was I here? I looked back for the stage curtains, but they were gone. Was I trapped? My clothes remained the same, as I was adorned in a jacket not suitable for the sunny summer weather I found myself in. This had to be a dream, all of it. I watched as the little girl made her way to a man. Messy hair, brown flannel. Fury raged in my chest as I took off toward him, tackling him to the ground. As I grabbed his collar, I got a closer look at him. It was Reeves. I faltered, loosening my grip as he smiled at me. "What's going on, man? Long time no see." He sat up, leaning back up against the grassy hill as he brushed himself off. "What the—" I stammered. "How did you get here? What is this?" I paused as I let my shock wear off. "Why did you screw my wife?" He paused, confused. "Not exactly sure what you're asking. We're at Legion Park with my daughter." He picked up the little girl, giving her a kiss on the cheek. "Little Riley here loves this park. Won't shut up about it at home. Ain't that right?" He nodded shyly, burying her face into his sleeve. "Is this a dream?" I asked, dumbfounded. "More like a memory," Reeves responded, setting Riley down. She took off, heading straight for the playground. "I don't remember this." I stared, confused as Reeves smiled. "Didn't say it was yours, boss." He sat down in the grass. I sat next to him, digging my hands into the soft earth. I clenched my fists, pulling out clumps of wet dirt and grass as I did. Reeves looked at me concerned. "Here," he said as he reached into his pocket. He pulled out a pack of smokes. "It'll help take the edge off." I inhaled as he lit the tip, letting the warm smoke fill my lungs. God, how I needed it. I exhaled, letting the gravity of my situation leave as I did. "Why did you screw my wife?" I asked solemnly. I leaned forward, burying my head between my knees. "Why are you wearing the clothes of a dead man?" Reeves stared, a bit confused. "I don't follow." "I saw you in the auditorium screwing my wife. Some cult people watched as you did it." I was starting to yell. Kids were starting to stare. I took another long drag from the dead man's cigarette. "You're wearing the same clothes as the guy we found dead and eaten. Don't you remember? We were on a case, investigating the screams." Reeves smiled softly, trying to comfort me. "You're exhausted," he said, placing his hand on my shoulder. "I still don't understand. Maybe you should get some sleep." I laid my head against the grass as the sun poked through the leaves overhead. Am I hallucinating? Did that scream mess with my brain or something? "Are you sure that's your daughter?" I asked. You couldn't remember her face when we saw her in the school. He laughed, shaking his head a bit. You in this school of yours, he joked. You'd think I would recognize my own daughter. I just stared in utter confusion. I didn't know what to make of all of this. I offered him his cigarette back, only half burned. Nah, you finish it, he smiled. I don't really smoke anymore. I stared. Now I knew I was dreaming. You've got to be kidding me. This has to be some sort of dream, I said, laughing. Reeves doesn't want to smoke? What kind of fairy tale is this? I told you, it's not a dream. Reeves stared, his smile gone. It's a memory, and if you want out, fine. The A-wing doors appeared in the distance. I looked, shocked. Reeves was now staring at me, smile gone. His eyes were still warm, but filled with sorrow. Just remember this is what could have been, he said. Tears filled his eyes. Reeves, what are you saying? Just remember, we are all corpses here, the ones left in your wake. He cried out as he turned his head. The kids had stopped playing. The parents had stopped talking. They had all turned toward me, turning their heads. Their heads started twisting past the natural limit. They all cried out as the tendons in their necks snapped. Reeves looked at me, screaming as his head completed rotation after rotation. His daughter Riley stood next to him, enduring the same fate. I watched in horror as their heads popped off one by one. Blood gushed from the open necks as bodies toppled, children and parent alike. Reeves wailed, his head now purple. Leave now, he gurgled under his final breath. I turned and ran for the doors as the trees decayed around me. The sky turned gray and the grass withered and died. I sprinted, unable to make anything out of the conversation I had just had. As I pushed through the doors, I heard a scream. The same scream I had heard all night. I didn't look back, letting the doors slam shut behind me. I was back at Eaton High, the same abandoned school Reeves and I had entered. The dim hall lights were still on as I made my way through the building, calling out for Reeves. As I stumbled through the halls, I noticed the front office lights were on. I made my way forward, hoping Reeves would be in there. He has to be. I couldn't take any more nonsense tonight. I approached the desk, half expecting Reeves to be there. How I wished he was there. Instead, a single case file met my gaze. A bit of dust coated the brown packet as I picked it up. It was filed by the Des Moines Department on August 13th. The year remained the same. I sat down at the desk, compelled to read it. Something told me I must. I opened it up as the memory came to me. What have I done? Case file, robbery, filed by Officer IA 2375 at approximately 11:39, August 12th, 20XX. God, what have I done? Detective Ramirez, do you recall what exactly transpired? It was a warm August night. No wind. Officer 2375. Yes, I do. I had just gotten home from work. Another late night at the station. Detective Ramirez. Can you give an account of what exactly went down? I was tired, worn down. Just wanted to get some sleep. Officer 2375. I was at home. Just got back from work. I heard noises coming from the master bedroom. Officer 2375. I heard noises coming from my driveway. I opened the door. Officer 2375. I went to go check it out. My wife was in bed, though she wasn't sleeping. Officer 2375. Saw a man clad in all black. Couldn't make out his face. A man lay on top of her, buried in the sheets. Officer 2375. I was scoping out the house. At the time, I didn't know if he had a gun. I saw his messy hair, brown flannel. Officer 2375. I went to alert my wife, called up my partner Reeves to get over there. She yelled when she noticed me. The man turned around. Officer 2375. He broke the window, forcing himself in. Reeves looked at me shocked. Officer 2375. He proceeded to shoot 2 shots into the ceiling. Warning shots. He couldn't believe I caught him. Officer 2375. My wife ran from out of the bedroom, holding the house gun. I couldn't take it. Officer 2375. He shot her dead in front of me. I just couldn't take it. Officer 2375. Reeves was gunned down. I didn't count the number of shots. I shot Reeves 3 times. Officer 2375. I thought I was next. My wife screamed. Oh, how that scream blinded me. Officer 2375. But he went for my car keys, demanded my wallet. I unloaded the remaining 3 bullets into her skull. Officer 2375. He just took my car and drove away. Oh, God. What have I done? My dad never let me own a phone. He'd already lost one son to an online predator, and he wasn't going to let it happen again. I tried to explain that I wasn't like Kyle. I didn't want to meet up with anyone from the internet. All I wanted was to message my friends and watch YouTube videos on the bus. But Dad wouldn't have it. Since Kyle disappeared, I barely left my room. When dinner was ready, I waited until Dad had finished eating before I grabbed my plate. Easier that way, without him watching. If I ate too slowly, he'd snap. What, not good enough for you? Before, Kyle used to redirect our old man's anger at himself, shielding me from the worst of it. He'd taken a beating once when I knocked over a can of red paint in the garage. Whenever someone asked about the purple bruise under his eye, he'd say it came from playing hockey. I never got the chance to thank him for that. I worked part-time bagging groceries at the Quick Mart and saved $200. One of my friends, Devin, sold me a cheap Motorola smartphone. I added people's socials, installed YouTube, Spotify, and a few other apps, and set up this Reddit profile. I couldn't risk Dad finding out the phone, so I pried up a floorboard in our bedroom, my bedroom, to hide it. I had to keep reminding myself of that. Without Kyle, there was no more our room, our desk, or our wardrobe. It was all mine, and that's all it ever would be. With steady internet access, my morbid curiosity got the better of me, and I googled Kyle's name. Recent articles popped up, and a headline on an obscure news site froze me. Father investigated in missing child's case. The photo showed Dad stepping in, or out, of his Lexus. Suddenly his boots echoed on the staircase. I slid the phone back under the floorboards and hopped into bed, pulling the cover to my chin. Dad leaned in my doorway, slurring, "Good night, Bailey." Lately I'd caught him hiding a flask of whiskey in his jacket. It hadn't been this bad since the early months of the divorce. "Good night, Dad," I replied. But a question escaped me. Is there any new information on Kyle? His expression sobered. "You know the rule. You don't talk about him. It's not for you to worry about." When he left, he kept the door ajar. I considered closing it, but if he went to the bathroom during the night and found it shut, he'd chew me out. I rolled onto my side and tried to sleep. I was beginning to drift off, my thoughts bleeding into hazy dreams, when the sound started. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It reminded me of nails on skin or a shovel in dirt. I looked down at the floorboard I'd hidden the phone under, and the scratching stopped, as if it were saying, "Yes, it's me. I'm here." Had I left Spotify playing by mistake? Carefully I slipped from the bed and crouched by the floor, glancing at the door to be sure Dad wasn't watching. I pressed my ear to the boards and listened. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Then I recognized the sound. Fingers clawing through soil, as if something was climbing up from beneath the house. I jumped back into bed and closed my eyes, desperately trying to ignore the sound. It was an absurd thought, not one a rational mind interprets. Yet I couldn't bring myself to lift the floorboard and look inside. The next morning, I asked Dad what it could be. He had an immediate answer. Rats. They'd probably nested in the walls and floor. One must have fallen into a gap and trapped itself. Night after night, the scraping continued. I wondered how long a rat could survive. 5 days? A week? By the end of 2 weeks, I knew it couldn't be a rat. The sounds grew louder, closer. At times, when there was no wind outside, I'd hear weak, whistling breaths creeping up from the floorboard. I forced myself to endure it for 2 more days, determined to block out the noises until they faded, until last night when everything changed. The scratching began as usual around 2 or 3 in the morning, but after a few hours it stopped. Silence stretched, and for a peaceful moment I thought it may have stopped, but then the scraping resumed, rougher. Fingernails against wood. The loose floorboard wobbled open as something shifted beneath. Too terrified to look, I grabbed a stack of textbooks and placed them onto the board. The wobbling ceased, but on the other side, the scratching continued. I stayed awake until dawn, and at first light, I finally removed the textbooks and lifted the floorboard. Inside, my phone was gone, fallen into what had replaced it, an arm-sized hole leading into blackness. My heart pounded as I stared down the void. Without my phone, I had no light to shine inside and see how deep it was. So instead, I leaned closer and hovered my ear over the hole. Breathing. The weak, whistling breaths I'd heard earlier, like the lungs were filled with dirt. My pulse quickened. It couldn't be true. It'd be ridiculous to even consider it, but I found myself confronting the possibility. Something was buried down there. At school the next day, I borrowed Devon's phone and called my number. Devon gave a short laugh. "You think the thing in the hole knows how to use a phone?" The phone rang 7 times, then clicked as someone answered. "Hello?" I whispered. A voice I knew all too well, Kyle's voice, crackled through the static. "Don't trust him." It started with a simple task, cleaning out my closet. It's one of those things I put off every few months, but this time I decided to take care of it. My closet's a mess. Old clothes from college, jackets that don't fit anymore, random things I've collected over the years. You know the type. I reached for a jacket that I hadn't worn in ages, one that was a bit too small but always reminded me of simpler times. Walking around campus, running late for classes, just the usual college life. I pulled it out from the back of the closet, shook off the dust, and noticed something odd. There was something in one of the pockets. I don't remember putting anything in it, and I've had this jacket for years. I didn't even know the last time I wore it, but the thought of finding something inside felt weirdly comforting. It was a small folded up piece of paper, the kind of paper that felt old and familiar but still had a little crisp. I unfolded it, half expecting to find some stupid receipt or an old ticket from a concert I'd forgotten about, but instead it was a note, written in my handwriting. I froze. It wasn't the kind of note I would have written recently. It was my handwriting from years ago, but I'm certain I didn't write this. The words were clear, precise, and strangely calm. Here's what it said. Do not open the door at 3:23 a.m. Don't listen to the knock. My blood ran cold. I didn't even know what to think. I looked at the clock. It was 3:22 a.m. I checked the time again. 3:22 a.m. How could this note have been written by me? I haven't written anything like this in years. I couldn't remember ever making a note like this, and yet there it was, in my handwriting, in my jacket pocket, as if it had been placed there just moments ago. I stared at the paper for what felt like an eternity. The smell of old leather and paper in the room suddenly felt too thick, like the air was closing in on me. I thought about tossing the note, throwing it away, or burning it, but something made me keep reading. I'm not joking. The knock will come. It will be faint at first, but it will get louder. Don't answer the door. It's not you on the other side. That part didn't even make sense. It made my head hurt just reading it. But before I could make sense of it, the strangest thing happened. I heard it. A knock. I know it sounds crazy, but it wasn't just any knock. It was like someone was tapping on my door, just hard enough for me to hear, but soft enough that it almost sounded like I imagined it. I looked up, my heart pounding, and checked the time again. 3:23 a.m. There it was, just like the note said. My mind raced, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe I'm just hearing things. I stood there frozen for a while, staring at the door, waiting for more knocks. Something. Anything, but it didn't come. For a while the silence was almost unbearable, and then I heard it again. This time it was more deliberate, louder, almost as if it was an actual person on the other side. Someone knocking slowly, methodically, like they knew I was there, but that's impossible, right? I'm here alone. No one has keys to my apartment. No one should even know I'm up this late. I've read enough horror stories to know where this is going, but something feels off. This isn't like any other story I've read. This feels personal, like it's meant for me. That's what's scaring me the most right now. I'm not answering the door. I swear I'm not. But every time I look at the clock, it's like I can feel the time slipping by. The knocking hasn't stopped. It's still there. Faint, rhythmic, almost a whisper at this point. I can't tell if it's just my mind playing tricks on me, or if it's something else. So here I am, writing this because I don't know who else to tell. I don't know what to do. The note was right. 3:23 a.m. came and went, and now I'm sitting here in the dark, listening to something I can't explain. But if the note was right about that, then what else is true? What else is coming? I'm scared to find out. I became a smoker when I was 16. I stole 2 cigarettes that my older brother left on the dashboard of our car. In my head, I couldn't blame this on his carelessness. I didn't even have a reason to start smoking. I just wanted to know what it was like. Curiosity killed the cat and all that. A week after I had found them, I waited until it was past 11 and the house was asleep. I opened the window and climbed out onto the back roof overlooking the marsh. I used a candle match to light it. Funnily enough, I actually lit the filter instead of the tobacco end, and I sat there wondering what all the buzz was about. It tasted vaguely burnt, and I couldn't even blow out the smoke like I'd seen in movies. I stubbed it into the windowsill and chucked it into the marsh, too scared of my parents' wrath to try and dispose of it any other way. I watched the orange spark still left on the end of it disappear into the long grass until the darkness enveloped it. Of course, now I know I was being careless, but back then I was too self-absorbed to think about the animals or the possibility of a wildfire. All I really cared about was not getting in trouble. The second cigarette I'd ever smoked, I smoked it properly. It was broken in half with the tail hanging off, so I broke off the end of it and lit the paper still left. The filter was in my mouth this time, and I suddenly got why my entire family risked lung cancer every day. I held it between two fingers and felt so unbelievably cool when I released the smoke in my mouth. The vague burning was more of an ash this time, stuck on my teeth and the back of my throat. I cannot explain what was so pleasant about it, as I'm sure any smoker could tell you. You don't know why they do it until you've done it. I stubbed it shortly thereafter, since there wasn't much paper to burn, but the damage was done, and I was hooked. I knew when I chucked it into the marsh grass that it would not be the first time, and that fact settled over me, with a finality I accepted quickly. I brushed my teeth thoroughly after every smoke break. It started just at night, and then in the evenings after school when I knew my mother would be cooking dinner. Anytime I was stressed, I needed a cigarette. I craved the burn at the back of my throat. I wouldn't say I was fully addicted at that point, since I was limited in my supply. I would be able to steal 1 or 2 a week, and even when I eventually started buying them off kids at school, I was too lazy to get a job and could only afford a pack once a month. Even as my habits changed, the place I smoked them never did. I still sat perched on my rooftop, feet dangling over the edge, and when I was done I would chuck them as far as I could into the marsh grass. It became a game in my head. If I could get farther than the last one, how long I could still see the ash in the dim sky. Once at 2 or 3 a.m., I was splayed out over the roof on my back. The cigarette between my fingers was almost finished, and when I held it in the air to blow it out, it fell directly on my face. I cursed and sat up, twisting it into the roof in frustration, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw something in the marsh. I spun my head around and saw the dark figure of a tall man. His silhouette was odd and unnerving, body too skinny to hold a head that large. He stared at me, arms at his side. I nearly fell off the roof. I used the heels of my boots to push myself up and grab the windowsill. I shut my eyes tight as I climbed back through and plopped down on my bed. I whipped around to shut and lock my window. I snuck a peek out of the blinds, but he was gone. I've never been sure if I actually saw something out there. I was tired, and unless he laid himself down in the wet mud or gained super speed, I couldn't figure out how he'd gotten out of my sight within that minute. It frightened me out of smoking for all of a week, and then I was back to my old habits. Except now I smoked in the park. My window remained locked until I moved out. I still thought I saw him out of the corner of my eye sometimes, but I was also always known to be paranoid. I'm 28 now. I quit smoking last year when I got pregnant with my daughter. My husband and I are living in an apartment a long way from my childhood home. We're on the final floor, high in the air with no balconies or ledges for my daughter to sneak out of when she's older. Quitting smoking was one of the best decisions of my life. I have more money in my pocket to spend on my little girl. My anxiety has almost entirely ceased. Last week I burnt dinner. It wasn't a big deal, but the kitchen stunk. I decided to slide open a window to let some air in. I dropped the glass of water I was holding. It shattered on the floor. My husband ran over and found me confused, a hand up to my open mouth. On the windowsill, 400 feet in the air, was a mound of burnt cigarettes. Long pieces of grass were poking out of it, covered in mud. The sun was just beginning to set beyond the mountains, which encircle my hometown, when a spring rainstorm popped up. I hadn't expected rain. The forecast had been showing clear skies all day long. It started as nothing more than a drizzle, and quickly became a deluge before subsiding back to a drizzle. As the downpour waxed and waned all around, I was disturbed to hear a sound which was not born of nature. It was the sound of somebody trying my back door's handle. The torrential rain slowed down long enough to hear a slow, low, disappointed voice say, "Locked up tight." I felt panicked. Something was trying to get into my house. I was allowed only a second to grapple with this realization before I was wrenched back into the present by the sound of thunder slamming itself against my side door. The knob attempted to turn uselessly against its locked mechanism. The voice came again, this time sounding devastated, as if encountering a locked door while trying to gain entry to my home were one of fate's cruel tricks. Locked up nice and proper. My heart skipped a beat at the sound, and it skipped another when I turned to look at my front door, unlocked. I ran for the door. I doubt that I've ever moved that fast before, and I'm sure I could never do it again. I slammed against my wooden savior in haste, the lock sliding in with a clunk, immediately answered by a thunderous impact which shook the frame of the door, if not the whole house. Picking myself up where I lay, several feet away from the door, I saw that it had remained intact. Even the glass portion in the middle of the door was unmarred by the titanic force which slammed against it. I began to process what I was seeing beyond the glass. The thing which had been trying to enter my house, and its face pressed up against the transparent barrier. It was a putrid mass of writhing flesh. Hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny tentacles comprised the bulk of the face. It had the eyes of a snake. Its tentacles moved in perfect synchronization to reveal a mouth filled with row after row of way too many teeth. Its teeth were round and dark in color, like stones worn smooth by a river. It spoke again, this time consumed by animal rage. "All locksy-upsy, good, good, good." After its outburst, the creature took to silently leering at me, with only enough of its head exposed to allow its eyes to see me. We stayed like that for a while, the thing leering at me with cold fury in its eyes, me staring back with cold piss in my pants. Eventually the rain subsided and the devil disappeared from my doorstep. I had thought that would be the end of it. 4 months had gone by, and I was beginning to approach the idea of letting go of the horrific experience I'd had. It had been almost an hour since I had last checked the weather, and I was thinking of going for 2. That's when I saw the announcement of a pop-up storm for my area. All of my doors had been staying locked for months, and that day was no different. The thing made its rounds, growing in volume, corresponding with its rage. When it had checked all of my doors and found its efforts frustrated, it took to leering at me just as before. It's been 7 years since then. I'm a morning person by necessity. That's when I do all my shopping, gardening, working, and general outside stuff. I check my weather app every 15 minutes. These are precautions I've taken as I don't know how it all works. I don't know what would happen if I were to stay home when a surprise storm rolled in. I don't know what this thing even is. I do know one thing though. After 7 years of maximum effort attempts, the thing now only bothers, half-heartedly, to check the front door. Finding no success, it sighs and goes to sulk in a corner. After 7 years, it's giving up. My brother died 6 years ago. He was 17, drunk driver, highway shoulder, over in seconds. I won't get into the grief. That's not what this is about. This is about what started happening 2 weeks ago, after my daughter was born. We bought this old farmhouse last year. It's the kind of place with creaky floors and drafty windows. And honestly, that's part of why we liked it. My wife and I thought it had character. The nursery used to be a study, tucked upstairs in the back of the house. Quiet, removed. Perfect, we thought. We set up a baby monitor, a cheap audio one, not a camera. I'm not paranoid, just cautious. I like knowing if she's crying before the full-on banshee screams begin. But a few nights ago, I started hearing something that wasn't crying. It was a voice, male, soft, whispering. The first night I chalked it up to interference. The house is old. Maybe it was picking up a neighbor's radio. But it wasn't static or chatter. It said her name, Ellie, just once, like someone checking if she was asleep. I didn't tell my wife, not yet. What do you even say? Hey, I think our baby monitor is haunted. The next night it spoke again. Same voice. This time a little clearer. It's okay, Ellie. Don't cry. I'm here. I went into the nursery. Nothing. She was asleep, breathing slow, peaceful. The monitor was silent now, like it knew I was listening too hard. On the fourth night, I recorded it. Sat up with the monitor plugged into my laptop and hit record. I didn't even have to wait long. It's okay. I'm watching her. You can sleep. That voice. It was his. My brother. Caleb. I didn't believe it until I heard the way he said my name. The same half laugh in it. The same cadence. I hadn't heard it in years, but when I played it back, it was unmistakable. Jake, it's okay. That's when I told my wife. She listened. She didn't cry, but her hands trembled. She'd only met Caleb once, but she remembered his voice. We tried unplugging the monitor. It didn't matter. We heard it anyway, like the signal had settled into the walls. The monitor still whispers most nights. Sometimes it sings, half-remembered lullabies our mother used to sing to us. Sometimes it just hums. It always sounds calm, gentle. Until last night. Last night I woke to Ellie screaming. Not crying, screaming. We both ran into the nursery. She was in the corner, pressed up against the wall like she was trying to escape the crib. The monitor was on the floor, still on. I picked it up and heard it. Caleb's voice, but different now. Urgent. He's here, Jake. Get her out now. Then silence. Dead air. We're staying at a hotel now. I don't know who he is. I don't want to find out. But tonight, the monitor's light blinked on again, and it's not Caleb's voice anymore. We've changed hotels twice. Ellie clings to us at night. She won't sleep unless one of us is touching her. Her fingers find my shirt, or her tiny foot presses against my side. She lies still, breathing softly, but her eyes don't fully close. Lately, she watches the corners of the room with a focus too sharp for a child her age. The baby monitor's gone, smashed and left behind. Whatever came through it didn't stay there. At the previous hotel, it found another way in. The television clicked on by itself, just static at first. Then the sound shaped itself. A voice emerged, slow and deliberate. The words were hushed, but they moved through the room like smoke, and as the voice grew clearer, the bed lamp began to pulse in rhythm, each flicker matching the cadence of the words. She belongs to the house. That was enough. We walked out within minutes. In this new place, we stripped everything down. No electronics, no screens. Nothing left that it can speak through. I stepped out just now to grab food and turn my phone on for a minute, hoping for a call back from someone who might know what this thing is. While I wait, I'm posting this quickly. I'll shut it off again before I drive back. I don't want it finding us through this. Still, something follows. Ellie senses it before we do. She tracks the ceiling, the spaces above door frames. Last night she reached toward the corner where the walls meet. Eyes wide. He's watching, she whispered. Her voice was calm, certain. She's not even a year old. My wife hasn't said a word since we arrived. She cradles Ellie like she's the only real thing left, humming those soft lullabies, the same ones we once played on the monitor, before it turned against us. The melody used to soothe her. Now it feels like bait. I've started to wonder how long this thing has known about Ellie. The way she stares into darkness like it's speaking back. The way she hums the lullaby in perfect rhythm when no one else is singing. Then there's the way she screams to know things she shouldn't. How she points to the corner of her room as though she can hear the voice before it speaks. It's like something in her bloodline is calling it to her. My family has never talked about it, but there's always been an odd, unspoken tension around the older relatives. Something's always felt off about their stories. Perhaps they know. Perhaps we all know. We're running out of places to go. The silence between us is heavy. Every door we close feels like a temporary seal against something inevitable. Ellie doesn't cry. She doesn't speak unless it's to point, to gesture, to let us know where it is now. Whatever this force is, it doesn't want us. It wants her, and not as prey. She isn't just being hunted. She's being claimed. The house, whatever that word means to this thing, it's bound to one location. It isn't just a structure. It's following us, perhaps through her, perhaps for her. The voice didn't say she was in the house. It said she belongs to us, and that's what keeps me awake. She's not just a target. She's the opening, and it's getting closer. We didn't pack, just grabbed Ellie, the diaper bag, and the keys. No checkout, no plan, just distance, just instinct. I drove like the roads would disappear if I slowed down. Back roads, service routes, even dirt paths, anywhere but the places it had already touched. My wife Sam sat silent in the passenger seat, Ellie asleep in her arms, her tiny hand curled tight around the fraying blanket. I didn't know where we were going. Didn't matter until the radio turned on by itself. I hadn't touched it. The display stayed dark, just static, low and sharp like something breathing through the speakers. Then a voice slipped through. Jake. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. Caleb? I said before I could stop myself. The air in the car changed, thinner, like the space around us was stretching. Sam straightened, her grip on Ellie tightening. Even asleep, Ellie stirred and made a soft sound, half whimper, half word, like she recognized the voice. It crackled through the static again, clearer this time. Go back. Farmhouse. Barriers thin there. Can't. He listens. The message broke apart like ice underfoot. The voice vanished. I pulled over, just stopped the car in the middle of nowhere. Sam looked at me calm but firm. It followed us, she said. Even here, we can't outrun it, but maybe Caleb can help us. I don't want to go back. I know, she said, but I don't think we have a choice. So we went back. We pulled into the gravel driveway just as the sun started rising. The house smirked at our return, like it expected us. There was something on the doorstep, a small wooden horse. Ellie reached for it immediately, whimpering when I didn't give it to her. I knew that toy. We hadn't brought it with us. I knew we hadn't. I cleaned it up weeks ago after finding it in a dusty attic box. It quickly became Ellie's favorite, but it was not on the doorstep when we fled. I would have seen it. Sam's eyes locked on it. That wasn't there before. She wasn't asking. We left Ellie asleep in the car, doors locked. I don't care how weird that sounds. It felt safer than bringing her inside. I want to go up there, Sam said, staring at the ceiling like she could see through it. The attic? I asked. She nodded slowly. Right before we bought this place, I had a dream. It didn't make sense until just now. It felt like nothing back then, just a weird, disjointed image I shrugged off. What was it? I was in an attic. There was this pressure in the air, like being watched, but not by anything human. I didn't think it mattered. Just stress, maybe. But the feeling I had in that dream, this creeping unease, it's exactly what I feel right now. I felt the chill crawl up my spine. You think it was a premonition? She turned to me. I guess you're not the only one this place speaks to. The attic smelled like old wood and colder air. Dust rose with every step. I could hear my own breath. We didn't find anything at first, just the boxes we hadn't touched, insulation flaking from the corners. Then I stepped on something soft, a hollow creak, loose floorboard. Underneath, wrapped in faded newspaper, was a stack of black and white photos, old, curled at the edges. They looked like scenes from some secret ritual. Men and women in carved wooden masks stood in a circle, surrounding a baby laid out on something like an altar. Candles burned around them, symbols scrawled in chalk or ash on the floor. The masks were too detailed, too lifelike. The beams in the ceiling above them matched ours. So did the knot in the floorboards beneath the circle. This wasn't just a ritual. It had happened here, in our attic. Sam found writing on the back, names, dates, my family's names, people from my grandfather's generation, aunts, uncles, cousins. One photo had my grandfather in it, unmistakably younger, but wearing the same smug smile I'd seen in old family albums. He stood in our front yard holding a baby. Behind him, plain as day, was a crooked old mailbox, our last name on it. This was his house, I said, barely breathing. I think it still is, Sam whispered. Suddenly downstairs, something clicked on. A radio. The old tabletop radio in the dining room was lit up, crackling with static, the same one I'd thought was broken. Then Caleb's voice again. Ellie's in danger. He's still here. I leaned in. Who is he? Our grandfather. He's been waiting, watching. He needs her. A vessel. A second chance. Sam grabbed my arm. Why didn't your dad ever tell you any of this? A pause. Then Caleb's voice, raw and low. I tried to warn him before you bought the house. He told me this was my fault, said it was supposed to be me. Dad brought the horse. That's why he was here. He's in on it. I thought he might be happy to see me, or at least scared his dead kid was haunting him, but he was so matter of fact. It was as if he expected me to be here. Caleb's pain was palpable. Death didn't numb the wounds our dad inflicted. Silence. Caleb, what do we do? How do we stop it? The static hissed louder, drowning him out. But just before it cut completely, I heard one more voice layered beneath the noise. Different. Smaller. Tell Carl, it whispered. Frank always wanted a brother, too. The room shook. Not an earthquake. Something deeper. Like the whole house was breathing in. We ran, grabbed Ellie, drove straight to my father's house. The lights were on, but no one answered. I knocked. I called. Nothing. A shadow passed behind the curtains. I grabbed a rock. Sam said nothing, just held Ellie and ducked behind the car ready. I raised it high. Just as my eyes squinted to shield them from the shards that would follow, the door opened, and there was my dad, smiling like nothing was wrong. Well, hey, what a surprise, he said. Dad's smile was too wide, a mask barely hiding the tension beneath. We didn't respond, just stepped inside. Sam went in first, clutching Ellie. I followed, eyes locked on him. He stood like he was waiting for a cue, an actor hoping the scene would end before everything falls apart. Sam didn't give him one. Carl, she said, cool and direct. We need to talk. He blinked, then forced a chuckle. You guys look like hell. What's going on? When we moved in, I said, we found a wooden horse in the attic, hand-carved, worn smooth. We gave it to Ellie. Sam's voice was steady, but when we left the house and came back, it was waiting for us, on the front step. We never put it there. Carl didn't blink. Old houses stir things up. Maybe you dropped it, or the wind caught it. These things happen. There's something in that house, I said, and it's not the wind. He gave a slow, sympathetic nod. Your new parents, worn out. Trauma messes with the brain. It sees patterns that aren't there. Sam stepped forward. Caleb warned us, said Ellie was in danger. The smile vanished. I pressed. He said you blamed him for what's happening to us. Carl looked down, then shook his head slowly. You're remembering grief, not a conversation. Sometimes echoes sound like meaning. He didn't look up. I said quietly, Frank always wanted a brother too. He shattered. Carl dropped into the chair like his knees gave out, face gone pale. His hand reached for the table but missed, hovering uselessly mid-air before falling to his lap. They never said his name, he murmured. Not once, but I found it, scratched on the back of a photo buried deep in a drawer. I was 6. I asked Mom. She was drunk, stared into her glass for a long time before she said. He didn't cry, not even when they came for him, just stared at me like he knew. Then she started sobbing, ugly, choking sobs, and she never spoke his name again. His hands clenched. They cut him out of time itself, not just gone, like he'd never taken a breath. He looked up, voice raw. I didn't know him. I wasn't even born, but I missed him anyway. I needed him. When it got bad with my father, I used to talk to him, pretend he never left. He was the brother who protected me, who understood, who sat next to me in the dark and said, "We'll get out of here." I thought I made him up just to survive. He looked up at us, voice thick. Our father wasn't loud, just exact. He didn't hit us in anger, only when things were misaligned. He'd pull you into that basement and not say a word the whole time. Just wait, and then it started. He looked toward Ellie, then away. I thought I made Frank up, a protector in my head, someone to talk to when no one else listened. Turns out I'd been talking to a ghost. Sam's arms tightened around Ellie. Carl went on. The horse isn't just a toy, it's a marker. It's how they start the ritual. The child bonds with it. That bond creates an opening. Something starts to listen. You put it there, I said, in the attic, before we moved in. Carl nodded slowly. Before the sale closed, I told myself it was tradition, that I wasn't really doing anything, but I was. I knew what it meant. You blamed Caleb, I said. Why? Because when he died, the curse passed to you, Carl said. The pact only targets the youngest living child, a blood-etched tether, passed down like a curse older than memory. When he died, that became you, and that meant Ellie. He trailed off. Sam's voice was quiet but cutting. You blamed your son for dying because you couldn't face the truth that you're just as evil as your father, that you are the one who set this in motion. Carl didn't answer. The silence stretched. Then he exhaled, voice smaller. Staring into the abyss of death changes you. Not just the act, the absence. The closer I got to it, the more I thought about the ritual, about what it promised. A way back. I kept telling myself it wasn't real, just superstition, a story passed down. But even as I said it, part of me knew I was lying. I knew what I was doing. I wanted to come back, even if it meant stealing the future. He looked at Ellie again, and this time his face was raw. I held her in the hospital. Her fingers curled around mine, and I felt something break in me. Not guilt, not dread, just this aching, fragile hope. Like maybe this was it, my second chance. He wiped his eyes. But it's not a second chance. It's theft. It's what my father did to Frank. It's what I almost did to her. The pact allows members of our bloodline to live again, if the price is paid. My father is hungry for his turn. What do we do? I asked. You burn the house, he said. With the horse inside. It has to be on that land. If the horse survives, so does the door. We turned to leave. Carl didn't follow. Just as I reached the door, he spoke again. Jake? I stopped. He didn't rise, just lifted his eyes slowly, like the weight of them hurt. Are you sure? He asked. You can always have more kids. I walked out. Didn't look back. We pulled up to the house and stopped cold. There it was, the toy horse, propped in the front window, facing us like it had been waiting. Sam hugged Ellie tighter. I killed the engine but stayed frozen, staring back at it. A knot twisted deep in my gut. We burn it all, I said. Sam nodded. Her voice was steady. The house, the horse, everything. I popped the trunk. The gas cans were ready, 2 of them still sloshing from the drive. We circled to the trunk, whispering fast. Where to pour the gas, where to light it, how fast we'd have to move. Mid-sentence, Sam stiffened. The horse, she whispered. I turned back to the house. The window was empty, gone. Before I could react, the ground rumbled beneath us, a low, throbbing vibration that climbed up through my shoes and into my bones. The air shifted, heavy and sour, and then a sound rolled out from under the house, a deep, guttural growl. The trees bent under the sudden gust of wind, howling through the yard, clawing at our eyes. Sam shrieked. Ellie was wrenched from her arms by an invisible force. Sam lunged, grabbing at empty air, fingers scraping against the nothing that swallowed our daughter. And then Ellie was gone. 1 second she was there, clinging to Sam's shirt, and the next, nothing but the echo of Sam's scream. We didn't hesitate. We ran. We knew exactly where she was. The attic. The heart of it all. The front door crashed open under my shoulder. Inside, the house was already tearing itself apart. Lights stuttered and sparked. TVs and radios shrieked static loud enough to splinter the windows. The walls pulsed, bowing outward, like the whole frame was breathing. We barreled up the stairs 2 at a time. The attic door yawned open at the top. We rushed in and froze. Literally. My legs locked mid-stride. I could still see, still breathe, but couldn't move. It was like every joint had been bolted in place. Ellie sat in the middle of the floor, tiny and still, clutching the wooden horse to her chest. Around her, a ring of candles sputtered and danced. Symbols had been carved into the floorboards. Circles, jagged lines, things that hurt to look at too long. Then came the masks. 2 floated forward. One pressed itself over Sam's face. The other locked onto mine. They didn't smother, they caged. I could feel the dead weight of them clamping down, pulling me deeper into the ritual. A third mask rose slowly, hovering above the scene. An invisible figure wore it. My grandfather. The entity. It floated toward Ellie, reaching out with arms that weren't there, but somehow still moving. Ellie didn't resist. She didn't cry. She just waited. The candles flared, the symbols pulsed. The entity lifted her, and then the attic door exploded inward, rattling on its hinges. Caleb, or what was left of him. He burst into the room like a dying star, flickering, unstable, but still burning. The entity recoiled. Ellie slipped from its grasp. Caleb caught her. He cradled her against his chest for a moment, and then dropped to his knees, collapsing beside her, trying to wake her. His hands passed through her more than touched her, flickering and unstable. Behind him the air warped. 7 figures emerged from the darkness. The vessel children. Their eyes burned red with fury, children who had been offered up like lambs to the slaughter. At their head was Frank, small, silent, seething. Frank screamed, an awful, ripping sound, and lunged at his father, knocking the mask clean off. The others followed, swarming the entity. They didn't attack just the thing in front of them. They attacked the memory of all in the bloodline that had betrayed them, the families that should have protected them, but instead gave them up. The entity faltered, losing form under the sheer weight of their rage. I saw it then, the flicker of realization. It was losing. It couldn't win against the vessel children. It needed help, and so it spoke. Not to us, to Caleb. "Help me," it rasped. "Help me defeat them. You can have her. You can possess her. I'll wait for the next one." The words slithered through the ritual space, poisoning everything they touched. Caleb froze. I could see it, the terror on his face. He was spent. Whatever force had let him manifest was almost gone. Even if he saved Ellie now, he would fade into nothingness. But if he accepted, he could live. The entity knew exactly where to strike, at the same fear that had ruled Carl's heart. I saw Caleb falter, saw him look at Ellie, at the children, at the door back into existence swinging open before him. He hesitated. Caleb didn't move at first. The spirit's voice threaded through the smoke, soft and slithering. You don't have to die. Take her hand. Choose life. He almost did. Frank's broken arm, barely visible in the smoke, reached out. His hand wasn't strong. It wasn't even whole, but it closed around Caleb's wrist. A dead boy's grip, trying to hold back the cycle. Caleb's whole body shook. He closed his eyes. He wanted to live. God, he wanted to live. But Ellie whimpered, and somewhere under the ash and static, Caleb remembered what it meant to love someone more than yourself. He tore his hand free, not from Frank, from the fear, from himself. And before the spirit could scream, before the horse could be snatched away, Caleb hurled himself forward. He seized the horse with both hands, and without hesitation, pressed it into the nearest candle. Flame swallowed wax. Caleb burned with it, not in body, but in the thin, brittle thread of soul he had left to give. We didn't have time to think. The horse exploded in Caleb's hands, the wax and paint igniting in a hungry snap, throwing sparks into the trembling attic air. The ritual cracked open like a fault line. The masks dropped, slamming into the floor one after another, hollow and broken. Sam moved first, always faster than fear. She grabbed Ellie and bolted. I stumbled after them, the smoke clawing at my throat, my lungs filling with the stench of burning wood and something fouler, something older. The house screamed not in sound, in motion. The floor writhed underfoot, stretching and tearing, the hallway out, bulging and buckling like the world itself was trying to push it back. Doors along the corridor slammed open, then shut, then open again, a stuttering, furious heartbeat. We ran. I grabbed Sam's hand and pulled her forward, feeling the house tug at my shoulders, trying to rip us loose. One last door, one last breath. I threw my weight into it, slamming it open just as it tried to slam closed, dragging Sam and Ellie through behind me. Outside, cold air, real stars, earth that didn't undulate. The gas cans sat by the car where we'd left them, as if the house hadn't noticed them, hadn't cared. Hands numb, I tore one open, sloshing gasoline across the porch, the steps, the broken threshold. Sam stood behind me, clutching Ellie against her chest, her face a blank mask of survival. I struck a match. The fire leapt up greedily, roaring along the wood, swallowing the doorway and the walls, gnawing into the bones of the house. The house didn't scream aloud. It fought. The flames bucked and twisted, trying to writhe free, to hurl themselves off the walls, to undo what had been done. But Caleb was already gone. The ritual was already broken, the blood debt uncollected. The house burned. No faces in the windows, no whispering in the eaves, just the smell of ash and grief and old, bitter promises burning out at last. We stood in the dirt and watched it die. It's been 3 years, different state, different house, different ghosts. We never spoke to Carl again. I don't know if he's alive. I don't much care. Ellie is 4 now. She's fierce, bright, smarter than either of us knows how to handle. Sometimes when she's excited, she talks with Caleb's grin, half laughing, half challenging, like the world isn't moving fast enough for her. Sam says it's just family resemblance. I want to believe that. Most days I do. Last night, though, I woke up around 3 a.m. No reason, just a pressure in my chest. On my way to the kitchen, I passed Ellie's door and froze. She was awake, sitting cross-legged on her bed, whispering into the dark. I leaned closer. He's sleeping, just like before. The words floated out. Calm, too calm. I knocked lightly. Ellie, what are you up doing? She turned toward me, face shadowed, smiling. Nothing, Daddy, she said sweetly. Then in a voice too steady, too old. You shouldn't be eavesdropping. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it, like someone else was watching me through her eyes. My heart jammed into my throat, and then she laughed, bright, messy, normal, and flopped backward into her blankets, giggling. Only the laugh, the crack in the middle of it, the way it bent, the way it splintered just wrong. For one breathless moment, it sounded exactly like Caleb. I stood there for a long time, long after she fell asleep, long after the house settled into silence, just counting my own breaths, just making sure they were still mine.